Landon Duckworth. We know that Lane Kiffin and this Ole Miss Rebel staff have made it a point to make him a priority. We know that for a long time, heading into this big quarterback battle with plenty of talent, that Lane Kiffin and his staff, Charlie Weiss, have really put Landon Duckworth at the top of that board, showing him, of course, not why only Lane Kiffin is a quarterback savant whisper, whatever you want to call him, but what they can do down at Ole Miss. But again, this is a guy who's super talented. I've had the opportunity to watch him this past off season, of course, at OT7, quarterbacking for his team down there. This is a kid that I've watched. He's got a tremendous deep ball, has just great accuracy, very calm and collective. He's definitely been really on the rise. But he was at one time, we know he's out of Jackson, Alabama. His partner in crime down there, Xavier Cromwell, has been another top running back that we've talked a lot about. But South Carolina was his one-time commitment school, and it seems that they are making a surge. Like I said, Lane Kiffin, the Ole Miss Rebels have definitely put Landon Duckworth. He's been the top guy on their board. But as the dominoes continue to fall, South Carolina has really continued, despite his decommitment, back this fall and whatnot. They have really still remained in the hunt. They are playing the long game, and he is set to take a visit there this upcoming weekend. So again, South Carolina is one of those guys that, despite him decommitting and Ole Miss having a lot of the momentum heading into this offseason, watch out because Shane Beamer has a flip possibly brewing. But hold off right there. Florida State, who we're going to talk about here in a little bit, has really been one of those teams that we haven't talked about a lot in general as far as the Florida schools are concerned. But man, the next 2 weekends at Florida State, they are setting themselves up for a really strong opportunity to land one of these top quarterbacks that we're going to keep talking about. And I love the way that Florida State has kind of laid back, watching the dominoes fall as these other schools continue to recruit or change the boards or move from different guys. Florida State has kind of waited, and now they really, Mark, have set themselves up with probably a checkmate in this 2026 class. If South Carolina doesn't get a commitment for Landon Duckworth, that's another QB that they're set to visit here in the next 2 weeks. Keyshawn Henderson, who we're going to talk about up here next, the coveted Houston 5-star commit, the Davy Crockett himself of college football, the ultimate athlete that everybody has been trying to decommit and flip from Houston. Florida State has made a lot of segue in that. So again, Landon Duckworth headed back to where it all began. South Carolina, Shane Beamer and his staff continuing to press to see if they can get his back in his good graces. Ole Miss still is very much in it. There's still plenty of schools in it, but watch out for South Carolina, and especially how some of these schools and these dominoes start to fall in this QB race. Florida State is setting itself up for an interesting June, because I guarantee you that they're going to be able to land one of the top commits when it comes to this 2026 quarterback class.
So yeah, back to Landon Duckworth. I noticed that his ranking took quite a leap a couple months ago after those quarter rankings came out. He jumped into the top 50. Keyshawn Henderson, you're kind of surprising me a little bit there, Leanne, in regards to, obviously he's been locked in on Houston. You know that he's taken that commitment seriously, but there are always going to be suitors from all over the place that are going to come after that talented of a quarterback until the National Signing Day. And I would have expected those to come elsewhere. I would have never put Florida State in that mix, but with one of the best offensive minds in the game, Mike Norvell, running the show, and then they bring in Gus Malzahn, who's an accomplished head coach, to run the offense. That's got to be a pretty inviting place to land for a young quarterback, with Florida State trying to bounce back from what happened to them last year. And I also know that you've got another quarterback on the board that you're tracking in Jaden O'Neal.
Before we get to Jaden O'Neal, I'm going to talk a little bit more about Keyshawn Henderson going back, like I said, SEC schools, Big Ten schools, ACC schools. Everybody have been trying to pull him. But again, got to give it to Keyshawn Henderson for being loyal to and being extremely loyal to Houston, but being extremely transparent. Like I said, this is a kid that plenty were recruiting at other positions, but he was dead set on this offseason, and he's definitely proven why he needs to be a quarterback. And I think too that was one of the strong foundational points that Houston was like, not only come play and represent your town, have the key to the city, but come play the position that you want about. So again, leave it to Keyshawn Henderson for still remaining loyal. But again, like I said, of all the schools you could have possibly thought outside of Houston that have been knocking on his doors, and believe me, there have been plenty of Power Four programs looking and selling their pitches down to Keyshawn Henderson and Houston. But Florida State, like you said, and you mentioned all the mentionables up there about why Florida State could be an appealing face, and the reason I say that they've made segue is it's one thing to put out an offer there. It's one thing to keep an open telephone line, of communication, which they've definitely done. But when you can land a visit from a kid like Keyshawn Henderson, that says a lot. And Florida State has made that segue. So again, this upcoming weekend is going to be a huge weekend as they are going to be set to host Keyshawn Henderson. So Florida State definitely will be one to watch. And again, much like Houston, I think what makes Florida State an appealing place for a kid like Keyshawn Henderson, blue chip kid who's just an all around athlete, and just has really rose up the ranks, proving why he's going to be an elite quarterback that I believe will translate, much like some of those other guys that I've talked about in DJ Lagway and Keelan Russell in these class recruiting cycles down in that Houston DFW talent, is because there's an opportunity at Florida State for Keyshawn Henderson, much like at Houston, to go be the impact player, to come to get a strong 4 years where he could potentially, find a home for the next few years, where in other places in other SEC schools that have these constant domino battles, that are a little bit less certain. So again, Florida State setting itself up to land one of possibly, they are really setting themselves up as these dominoes fall. They've watched and they've lurked from behind, letting other people make their moves, and they are learning to play chess in this big, interesting recruiting weekend. So again, Keyshawn Henderson set to make an official visit to Florida State. His first official, obviously, outside of Houston. So that's a big move by Florida State and what Norvell's doing down there to be able to get the blue chip quarterback out of Houston, down there for a visit. So it definitely will be an impactful time for Florida State to make some segue, but big move there by Florida State.
On the Move, folks, with Leanne and myself every Wednesday night, 8:30 Eastern. We talk recruiting, we talk transfer portal, we take your calls about everything. Just does not have to necessarily be just about recruiting, but we go late into the night taking your calls here at the Voice of College Football on Wednesday night. So join the fun.